All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you today. The first thing I want to talk about is that Monero plans a hard fork as ASIC mining once again dominates the network. So here we go again, I suppose. Monero may be attracting ASIC miners once again, despite a hard fork that disabled most known crypto machines. Analysis based on non-selection by an anonymous user, Monero Crusher, reveals patterns in the selection of nonces that suggest a usage of ASICs. A nonce is a value used in the determining of a block hash. GPU miners show more randomness, while ASIC miners choose their nonce based on a predetermined pattern. And this has led Monero Crusher to suggest that up to 85% of the current Monero hash rate is dependent on specialized machines. It's unknown which machines are mining on the Monero network. Previously, the Monero proof of work change disabled Bitmain's X3, which they sold conveniently weeks before there was a Monero fork. So good job, Bitmain, for selling those for like $8,000 a piece. Following a significant increase in the hash rate in the past quarter from roughly 400 megahash to above 880 megahash. The additional mining is evidence of renewed ASIC deployment on the Monero network. So a Reddit thread suggested that using FPGA integral schemes with programming bit streams has allowed pools to keep hashing power for most major algorithms. This also means that Monero will have to change its proof of work even more to catch up with miners and leave the network to GPUs. And Monero prices have improved in the past days, rising to $50 a pop, as there are expectations of the creation of another asset, XRM, following the new hard fork, which I'm sure will do just amazing. So once again, if another hard fork goes in, Monero will be once profitable again for probably 2 weeks until someone creates some kind of bit stream for FPGAs or ASICs or something like that. Until they creep back onto the network. But moving on here, Novogratz institutional money is coming in the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah, we haven't heard this one before, but let's pretend we have not. It's not like Game of Thrones or anything where, the zombies are coming. They're coming, I promise. All the dragons and the fire and the breathing and all the violence is coming, I swear. It's only going to take 8 seasons, and it'll happen. Speaking on Bloomberg Daybreak Middle East, the CEO at Galaxy Digital laid out his current position on Bitcoin in the market. Novogratz acknowledged the tumultuous nature, of 2018 for the cryptocurrency market, as a lot of the digital currencies have collapsed in value with more than 90%. I don't remember that. While the market itself has lost upwards of $700 billion. And I don't remember that either. That's not real. However, he also remains firm on his feet, holding that recovery will follow. He said that all the retail friends that came up and down are washed out, and that the market has in the process of handling off ownership from retail to institutions. The expert outlines that all the architecture which institutions need to feel comfortable is currently being put in place. Namely, Novogratz noted backed and fidelity as important steps in providing trusted custody solutions, saying that they're likely to come in somewhere next month, even though Back said it might be later this year. So who knows? Again, this is all real. This is all definitely going to happen. However, he also holds that institutions won't rush in on day one, but they'd rather take their time and see some water run through the pipes. Nevertheless, the Novogratz predicts the institutions will allocate a small amount of their assets into the cryptocurrency market over the next 6 to 12 months, while clarifying that a small amount of institutional assets is a lot of money. Well, it certainly is. But again, we've seen this crash from 90%, 90% in a lot of the currencies, once 2018 kind of rolled around. But again, I'm not sure if it was ever really, I think we should just basically take 2017 and throw it in the trash. It's kind of like when you're going up a skyscraper and you're like, I'm on the 12th floor, and then I'm suddenly on the 14th floor. Where was the 13th floor? They just didn't add it. So really, the 14th floor is sort of the 13th floor, even though sometimes they make it into one of those like sort of I'm not an architect, but they make it like the empty floor, just for reinforcement or whatever, because nobody likes the number 13. I don't know, whatever. So we should just take 2017, boom, throw it in the dumpster, throw it in the sharps bin, whatever, anything, because that was when BitConnect and everybody was buying in. BitConnect was pumping the price. Tether, all these Ponzi schemes were popping up. All these cloud mining schemes really exploded in 2017, even though they kind of existed before that. And again, I like to call them schemes because there's absolutely no reason you should ever pay somebody else to mine cryptocurrency for you. You could literally just buy it on an exchange today. I have literally never once signed up. Well, actually, I did sign up to Genesis Mining and Hashflare just to look at their policies and their prices, but I have never invested into cloud mining, never shown a referral link for cloud mining, even though every single other YouTuber did and probably still does to this day. There is let me just reiterate that one more time. There's absolutely no reason that you should pay a third party to mine for you. Either just mine yourself, or if you cannot mine yourself, just buy the coin. It makes no sense, and as soon as the prices go down, their daily maintenance fees are actually higher than what you get per day. So not only did you give them $100, $1,000, $10,000, but so they keep that money right off the bat. They got your money. It doesn't matter how much you get over time. They got your money. They got your $10,000. Not only do they get your $10,000, your $1,000, whatever you put into it, but they're also keeping the currency that they're mining as well and just not giving it to you. So if you're mining yourself, even at a loss, at least you're holding on to your coin, which I like to do this, even though that they're not physical things. It just psychology works better. But at least you're holding on to your coins, and one day they can go up in value. Whereas cloud mining, I just don't know why. Anyway, everybody was trying to make money off of that. BitConnect, all these Ponzi schemes, explosion of prices. It was basically unreal. In the actual definition, it was unreal. It was not real. 2017. It just basically it didn't exist for the most part, except for people that made money on it, and then everyone else it didn't. Anyway, moving on. Bitcoin has successfully sent cross-border without the internet or satellite. And at first, when I read the title of this article, I was like, you know what? This is probably somebody took a flash drive and took it across the border and then gave it to somebody. But no, much cooler than that. So we've sent Bitcoin via mesh networks and satellite, and the experiment was scuppered before it began when nobody replied to CoinKite founder. However, the next day, a suitable candidate with a software-defined radio, basically a computer pretending to be a radio, and antenna responded. Using an application called JS8Call, designed for sending text string over radio frequencies, and a pre-configured brain wallet, Novak sent a Bitcoin transmission all the way from Toronto, Canada to Michigan, USA, which this is really cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to just bash this because it was international. That's cool. It was over radio signals. That's also cool. But let me just tell you, in case you're not familiar with the geography of America and Canada, Toronto and Michigan, so essentially Ontario and Michigan are like this far from each other on the map. And it's kind of like sending a radio signal over Lake Erie from, I was originally from basically the city of Erie, and Ontario is just north of that. And we'd actually, from time to time, way back in the day, I remember when I was a kid, you would get sometimes television signals on a good day across the lake, and also sometimes driving around in your car. All my life living over there, you could sometimes tune into Ontario radio stations. So this isn't like a very big distance. It is radio distances, but it's still pretty cool regardless. So Bitcoin sent over a national border without internet or satellite, just the nature's ionosphere, commented Bitcoin pioneer Nick Sabo. So that's pretty cool. Guess I'm not going to read the rest of the article because but it's actually really cool. So we have satellites now transmitting Bitcoin. The internet, of course, transmitting Bitcoin. You can slap it on a USB and take it on down the road. And now, apparently, I'm sure it's easier said than done. You can do it with a radio signal. So pretty cool. So moving on to the next article here, self-proclaimed Satoshi responds to $1 billion Bitcoin lawsuit. So there is a current Bitcoin lawsuit going on from the family of Dave Kleiman, who is considered to be one of the Satoshi Group members, and Craig Wright, who is considered to be fake Toshi, and to some degree may or may not have been involved in the Satoshi Group. I don't know at this point. It doesn't really matter so much. Or maybe it does. I don't know. So, June 10th, there's been a lawsuit going on, and the judge basically dismissed a few of the complaints from Ira Kleiman, which is Dave Kleiman's brother, and they're suing Craig Wright for $10 billion, or 1.1 million Bitcoin. Coincidentally, 1.1 million Bitcoin is the amount of Bitcoin in the Satoshi wallet, so very weird. So basically, the Kleiman family says that Craig Wright manipulated, that they did work together, Dave Kleiman and Craig Wright, and they did mine Bitcoin together. That doesn't mean that either one of them is Satoshi, even though Craig Wright claims to be. But they did mine a lot of Bitcoin together, apparently 1.1 million. And apparently, Craig Wright somehow scammed these Bitcoins away from Dave Kleiman. The story is very unclear whether Dave Kleiman actually had the 1.1 million or Craig Wright had the 1.1 million Bitcoin. But according to the lawsuit, Craig Wright does. And so I think it's June 10th in Florida, the jury selection will begin. It might be July 10th. I don't know. Either way, one of those 2 months. And I'll definitely follow this up on my channel a lot. And that's when the jury selection begins. So I think we'll actually find out a lot from this court case. I think they're going to have to delve into some pretty deep evidence in order to convince the court that, yes, Dr. Wright did do this. And then, like, they would have to explain how that happened. So I'm very interested to see the information that will come out of this. But I'll read it from here. The first part is basically just Craig Wright denying that he knows anything. So Dr. Wright lacks knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as the truth of the allegations, which is basically from his lawyers. So Craig Wright's basically playing stupid, and then other times he doesn't. So it says, after denying much of the allegations, Wright defense says Ira Kleiman, remember Dave Kleiman's brother, claims are basically barred by applicable statutes of limitations. In the fifth affirmative defense, Wright's lawyers say Kleiman accepted shares in a corporation from Wright, which in turn releases obligations to the rights of Dave Kleiman. The eight affirmation defense responses explain that the plaintiffs are stopped from asserting their claims of fraud against Wright. Essentially, this means the Kleimans were allegedly aware of the Australian Taxation Office investigation, and estoppel shows they are asserting something contrary to what is implied. Additionally, confusing, I know. Wright's attorney says the alleged oral partnership agreement between is barred by the statute of frauds as well. There was no written partnership agreement between Dr. Wright and Dave Kleiman. So there is a Bitcoin Tulip Trust document between Dave Kleiman and Craig Wright, which you can just easily Google and find. But was that just made up? Was that made up by Craig Wright? Was it made up by Dave Kleiman? Was it just a complete forgery overall? I don't think anybody really knows. So I think saying that there is no written partnership could be essentially BS. There may be a written partnership with the Tulip Trust document, but it may have just been completely forged, as a lot of people claim Craig Wright to just be a complete serial forger of documents and knowledge and such. So Wright's recent memoir, I Was Satoshi the News, follows a random blog post written by Wright in which he reminisces about the old days when he allegedly created Bitcoin. Throughout the memoirs, the N-Chain representative basically claims to be Satoshi. Wright further explains how he hated the Silk Road and disliked WikiLeaks before going on to explain how he can sign messages with the early public keys associated with Satoshi, but refuses to do so because it is akin to asking to see his bank statement. I don't know about that because everybody can already see the public key anyway, Craig Wright. So if you can move the keys, then it wouldn't be like seeing your bank account. So what that basically says is that, like, it just makes no sense because everybody can see them already. So moving them would only imply that Craig Wright does own all of those Bitcoin, but yet he claims to be Satoshi, which means that he does own all those Bitcoin anyway. So he's basically saying, I don't want to prove that I'm Satoshi, but I'm Satoshi, and I don't want to prove by moving my coin because it's akin to seeing my bank account statement, which everybody can already see because it's public. So it just makes no sense. Moreover, if he did sign, no one would believe him anyway, he asserts, and many would just say he stole the keys. He says, Gavin knows I have the early keys. What does it matter? Wright concedes. So Gavin Andresen was the person who Satoshi Nakamoto handed the network alert key and the source code for Bitcoin over when he decided to quit. Another thing that's interesting that again, that Craig Wright could have just absolutely fabricated or just basically taken from public knowledge was the fact that Satoshi did hate the Silk Road because it did put a bad name for Bitcoin. He was a very paranoid guy, at least in his emails and public messages. He was quite paranoid, and he disliked WikiLeaks as well, because WikiLeaks was also in the hot bucket as well, because they were taking all the documents and showing all these classified documents and such. So they were in the hot seat and still are to this day. And so was Silk Road. And so Bitcoin was associated with both of those, which means that Bitcoin was associated with crime. And Satoshi did not like that, and he told Gavin in one of his very last emails, one of his absolute last messages that official Satoshi ever made, was an email to Gavin and Andresen saying, I don't like all this negative press on the Silk Road and WikiLeaks, etc. Why don't you try to take this bad news and, like, you know, try to put it in a positive light and try and talk about your developers and what a great job they were doing. And then Gavin Andresen finally said that his response to that was that I have a meeting with the CIA, basically. I have a meeting at the Central Intelligence Headquarters about Bitcoin, to which Satoshi never replied again. So he was either... so Craig Wright could easily just be taking all this public knowledge and being like, hey, I hated Silk Road and I hated WikiLeaks and I handed over all this stuff to Gavin Andresen, which everybody already knows, but just doesn't know who Satoshi is. So, again, one of those things that nobody can prove either way. So he says, I'm not going to list the people who helped me here, but Bitcoin started because of my ideas. It was my design, and it was my creation, and making certain that it cannot be subverted by criminals remains my duty. I was Satoshi. But if he was Satoshi, why make Bitcoin SV? Is it because he lost all the private keys and he wants to make it again? Or was it just for a cash grab? And I think at the same time, if Craig Wright was proven to be Satoshi, I think that would be sort of sunderous to the Bitcoin community. It really would, to your whole mind. I was talking about this on a live stream yesterday, and this is very interesting to think about. When you're driving around in your car listening to a radio station, you listen every day to the same radio host or something like that that you really enjoy. And then you actually Google what this person looks like, and it kind of shocks your mind, because in your mind, if you listen to someone long enough without actually seeing their face, you just sort of make a face based on what they sound like and how they act. And you just kind of make an image in your head of what this person looks like. And then when you see them, it's totally different, right? So that's what would happen if Satoshi actually came out of the woodwork. Yes, I am Satoshi, Craig Wright. What if it was Craig Wright? Let's just imagine that it was. I think it would sunder your mind, because I think everybody has this thing in their mind that Satoshi never cashed out any Bitcoin. It wasn't for money. It was for the people, so that everybody could get away from the fiat system. It has this level of altruism to it, this level of intrinsic altruism to it that, hey, I never cashed out this 1 million Bitcoin. I have no intention to, right? It wasn't for money. It wasn't so that I could make my own money and then cash it out at some point. But if it was Craig Wright, then I think it would destroy that altruistic mindset of Bitcoin, because we all know that Craig Wright used to be in debt. And now suddenly Craig Wright is very rich and has millions of dollars that he can just pump into Bitcoin SV. So it would destroy that, and it would seem to me that if it was Craig Wright, that Bitcoin was essentially stolen from Nick Szabo and Wei Dai and those earlier creations from money. And Dave Kleiman and Craig Wright, if that was the case, fought over mining it, and then Dave Kleiman died, and that messed the whole thing up. And then maybe Craig Wright somehow took all that Bitcoin and basically either spent it or intends to spend it. And that would really, again, it would just shatter the altruistic mindset, because if it was Craig Wright, he's kind of a D-bag. He's kind of, he's a very smart guy. If you listen to his talks on YouTube, you can just Google him, and he's always giving speeches and things like that. And they're always really, really down to earth, really intelligent, really, pragmatic speeches. They really are. It's hard to bash the guy when you actually watch him, but when he talks about the fake Toshi thing, then everybody bashes him. And I think it would, I really think it would destroy the altruistic mindset of Bitcoin in a way. I think maybe most people probably wouldn't care, though, and it would still continue on either way. But it would mess you up a little bit. finding out who Satoshi really was. And if it wasn't Craig Wright, or it wasn't Hal Finney, or it wasn't Dave Kleiman, or any of these people, it's just this guy just comes out, I'm Satoshi, right? It would be weird, because everybody would harass this guy. Everybody would ask him for questions, interviews, ask him to do this, do that. What are your next plans? They would harass this person, and he would be incredibly famous when he may not want to be. Everybody would look into his backstory. Did he have a criminal history? Was he in debt? Was this the reason why he made Bitcoin? And there'd be a lot of questions that would come out that maybe the creator wouldn't want to answer. Although I think it was a multitude of people. So moving on here, this is kind of weird. So lately on Twitter, if you just search for XRP dev team on Twitter, you'll notice that there's a lot of bots, and they're all the same accounts. You can see if you just scroll down, you'll see a lot of the same people. It's really interesting. And they all say the same thing, and they tweet to anybody that follows the XRP Twitter account. So you can see these are all at individual people. These are not the accounts tweeting themselves, and I'll show you one of them in just a moment. So thanks for the info. Didn't know the the dev team had abandoned the project. They didn't. I'm going to sell all my XRP right now. And then this is to a random person again. You recently follow Ripple on Twitter. If you want to buy XRP, it's a big no-no. It's been known that the dev team has already abandoned the project for another one. And another one is, hey, XRP fam, search on Team the XRP, you'll see a lot of fake accounts. So this one is a real one. Never mind. And he says, hey, I saw you follow XRP Twitter, so I suppose you're an XRP holder. If it's correct, sell you XRP bag now. It's been known the dev team had already abandoned the project for another one. And here it goes. And here's somebody pointing it out. Anti-XRP bots with 0 followers and 0 following spread FUD about XRP. The only positive thing about this is the bots use XRP dev team phrase. Even bots know the difference between XRP and Ripple. So again, another one like pointing to specific people that follow the Ripple the Ripple Twitter. You still follow Ripple at this time? If you're thinking about buying XRP, think twice, as I know dev team is creating another project. So these are all fake. So if you get one of these, like if you follow the Twitter, the Ripple or XRP Twitter, you might actually get one of these. And let me show you one of the accounts specifically. So somebody finally said they're following somebody here. I don't know why. And you can see that they have no tweets, right? So these aren't broad tweets. These are actually intended for individual people that are following the Twitter, following that specific Twitter. So, hey, I saw you follow XRP, so I need to know the dev team is quitting to create another project. Hey, I saw you follow XRP, so I think you may need to know. See, it's just over and over. They have about 5 or 6 different things they say, and it's just absolutely riddled. Like all of these tweets are basically the same thing. You still follow Ripple. You still follow Ripple. You recently follow Ripple. Hey, I saw you follow Ripple. So yeah, don't pay any attention to these if you happen to. Not saying that Ripple or XRP is the most amazing coin ever. I hate the fact that people even call it a cryptocurrency in the first place, but don't believe the FUD. Moving on to CoinMarketCap here, $120 billion market cap, 52% dominance. Still trading sideways. A little bit of red on the market though. As you can see, just a little bit of dips here at the end, but nothing too crazy just yet. Still trading sideways, and I'm still kind of waiting to see if there's going to be a bull run after this, which I likely would suspect there's not. Although, again, something that I would absolutely sousy love to be wrong on, because I want that bull market to come just as much as you guys do, but I don't think it's coming just yet, as there's nothing particularly hyping such a run. People were very hyped about this little explosion in price here, but I'm never really hyped about these whale purchases. I think people are just a little bit naive, and that's okay, but you're naive if you're very excited about these whale purchases, because sooner or later here, whether it's this one's been going on for quite a while, I admit, but sooner or later this is going to dump $100 or $200 until it organically increases back to this price, because the whale is going to sell off eventually. Who knows, though? Maybe it was a permanent whale buy and they're just hodling long term, but it's usually just not the case. But that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video. That helps me out a lot. And my social media in the description below, my Twitter, my Twitch, my Steam account. Follow me on those if you get the opportunity. But again, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as usual, I will see you next time.